Hey guys, Amanda here, and today we are back in the garden and we're going to talk about what happens in the garden after we broadfork. All right, what happens after you broadfork? I've got my husband Travis here and we're going to talk about what do we do in the garden? What do we do after we've broadforked and we've pulled all the weeds? What's next?
Well, you want to think about how healthy your soil is, for one.
Yeah.
I think Amanda mentioned last time, this used to be tobacco, right where we have the garden right now. And, you know, tobacco is going to take a lot of the nutrients out of the soil, so you need to think about replenishing that. Your case might be a little bit different, but even if you're using, like, say you're using a backyard or side yard or whatever, if it's had grass on it, it probably needs some nutrients regardless. Most folks will just use an artificial synthetic fertilizer from the store. We're trying to do everything as natural as possible and try to stay organic, as close to nature as we can. So for us, in our setting, we're going to utilize what we have around us. And for one, it's healthier, it doesn't cost anything, and we have it readily available. Two sources for us. We're going to use the duck water. It's the water source the ducks have, and they love to take baths in it, and just being ducks, they're going to poop in it.
Yep.
So we have that collected, easily accessible. And the second is our meat rabbits. Our meat rabbits, you know, they're also taking all this nutritious grass, weeds, whatever, and they're turning it into, like, basically fertilizer gold. And we're going to be able to put that right onto our garden source.
So we have the waste, to put it nicely, from the rabbits. We have recently broadforked this area right here. And again, if you haven't seen our last video on broadforking, I encourage you to go back and look at that video to see the process of how we took an area like this and turned it into this. This one's finished. We've broadforked it and we pulled all the weeds out. And so now we're going to amend the soil with the rabbit poo. This rabbit poo we just got from our meat rabbits. So my question is, how is it possible that we can take the rabbit poo and put it directly on the garden?
So you have to be careful when you're using animal manure for your fertilizer. Some animals are what they consider to be cold manure, meaning that you can put it right on your garden and it's not going to burn your plants. And that's all to do with the nitrogen percentage. So rabbit manure and duck manure, in our case, both are cold manures. And so it's safe to go ahead and put it right on your garden. There's no time to break it down and compost it to make it safe for your plants.
Yeah, and that's why we love using this stuff, because we call it, well, for the duck water, we call it liquid gold. And this is gold as well, because it really does just put lots of nitrogen in the soil. Because if you don't have nitrogen in your soil, your plants are going to be stunted and they're not going to grow. So we want to make sure, like Travis said earlier, that our soil is the healthiest it can be. So the first layer we're going to put over this naked soil here is the rabbit poo. So all we're going to do is just spread it out. Let me get that rake. And then Travis is just going to rake it through for me. That's good. We've got, there's our rooster. We've got the rabbit poo on the garden. Spread it evenly. What do we do next?
All right, so now we're gonna put some wood chips on it. We're gonna put a nice little layer of wood chips. Thank you, Rooster. Basically, what that's gonna do is a couple of things for us. mainly it's going to help seal in moisture to
Yeah.
the soil and keep the sun from baking all the moisture out of that topsoil.
Yeah.
This,
Second.
the second thing it's going to do is it's going to help with suppressing any new weeds from popping up.
Yeah.
Now you might still have some occasionally here and there and stuff, but it really will kind of help those whatever seeds are left in the soil or any new stuff from popping up, and it'll be easier to pull. The third thing and last thing is it will over time help feed more nutrition into your soil. This is the carbon component. Okay, we talked about the nitrogen with the fertilizer. Now this is the carbon component. So with the carbon component, I really want you guys to check out Back to Eden. It's on YouTube. It's a gardener out in Washington State.
Yeah.
And basically he has used wood chips for years and years, probably going on 2-3 decades now. And the results you really can't argue with. Now it does take time, but if you put wood chips, grass clippings, you know, any kind of carbon substance, trees, plants, you know, grasses, whatever, over time it will break down and it will feed your soil.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight thing, but we have already seen a huge difference just in what we've done in the past couple of years of it just softening the soil, inviting your healthy earthworms and things that are underneath the soil surface that are going to break up some of that hard pack, especially the clay. So we're going to put some wood chips on it now. So as far as sourcing something like the wood chips, you know, any of your local tree companies are going to be a great resource for that. And there actually is a website called Chip Drop.
Yeah.
And you can sign up. You know, you put your address in there to get a whole drop of wood chips. And you know, for the tree companies, mostly it's a waste product that they don't really want to mess with. And man, it sure is great for the gardens.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
But yeah, tip those guys though if they do bring you a load. Give them some love.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to spread the wood chips down here, and you know, nothing too crazy. This is not our initial. You know, when we're first starting a garden space, we might do a real thick layer. This is just going to be an inch or two maybe, just to kind of help seal that moisture in. So
Yeah.
very important not to till or bury wood chips or whatever carbon source you have deep into the soil, because it will tie up that nitrogen that your plants need.
Yeah, it's a good point. If you would like more tips and ideas on homesteading, living off the land, preserving food, all the in between, check out my website at www.lifewithaprons.com. Thanks for joining us.